In this video, we're going to take a look at creating the overall dirt and glass materials. So here, let's start with our base again. So Control Alt right click to make sure that we select that base. And I'm going to start building up a dirt material. So here I'm going to create a group. Within this group, let's just call this dirt. And while I'm here for this group, I want to make sure that I overwrite my height channel. So I'm going to set this to normal, and I'm going to do the same thing with my ambient occlusion. So we'll set those to normal. Now I'm going to create a fill layer, and let's drag and drop this here into the group. And this is going to be we're going to call this the base. It's going to be our base level. And let's come over here to our material and let's set a color. So let's see here. I'm going to try something like kind of a darker value, something maybe a little bit more like this. All right. Next, we're going to set just a rough value. We're just going to make this pretty rough, 0.94 or so. And we're going to make sure the metallic is set to 0 in this case. And now we're just going to come into here and we're going to mask this layer. So I'm going to right click and choose to add a black mask. And then here with the mask selected, we're going to add an effect and a generator. Here for the generator, I'm going to choose this MG Dirt. And so here you can see that we start to create the dirt in these occluded areas. We'll add a little bit of this grunge in here like this. Okay, so I'd like to break this up a little bit more. So here I'm going to add another effect, and this time I'm going to add a fill. And here for the fill, I'm just going to choose here again just this grunge concrete old. Let's set the projection mode here to triplanar, and then I'm going to set the blending mode to multiply. Now I need to go back to this MG Dirt and again play around here with this level control here. So let's take a look at this grunge amount and the dirt level. Let's go back here to this grunge concrete that I had, and I might drop that opacity a little bit. So here we go. Let's drop that down, and then I'm going to come back again to that MG Dirt and then play around with these values. Actually, I think I'm going to increase the dirt contrast as well. So let's do something like this, and the grunge amount. Okay. All right, so that's going to get me where I need to go. And so here we've just added like this layer or this base level of dirt. So now what I would like to do is add another layer on top of that, which is going to fall mainly on all of the upward facing surfaces. So here, what I'm going to do is just right click and duplicate this layer. Let's delete this grunge fill layer, and let's go back here to this MG Dirt. Now here, I'm going to change the generator. So we'll click the generator button, and let's choose this MG Mask Editor. So now we're going to come over here, and we're just going to turn off the curvature, and this time we're going to use our position gradient. So let's set our position gradient here. Now let's expose the position gradient controls, and I'm looking here at this top to bottom control. So here, what I'm going to do is just increase the contrast. I'm just going to keep playing with this till I get what I need here. So top to bottom, let's take a look at the balance. So here you can see that a lot of the dirt here, it's collecting in this occluded area and upward facing kind of slope surface, and then it's just going to fall off here. So again, I'm just playing around till I get what I need. Let's increase our contrast, and then here we have our top to bottom. So let's do something more like that here. Okay, so now that I have kind of this uniform value that's being created here using this position gradient, I'm going to come over here to my image inputs and add a texture. And here in this case, I'm just going to keep going back to this grunge map just to be kind of quick about it. So we're going to use grunge concrete old again. And we'll come up here and we're going to enable the texture. And then we're going to expand the texture controls. And this time we're going to set the blending mode to multiply to break up that position gradient. Now once we do that, actually while we're here, let's set that to triplanar. And then once we do that, we're going to need to just come back to our position gradient. So let's enable that, and then again, let's just play around with this balance setting here. So here's our balance setting. Let's look at our contrast. There we go. All right, so we're going to get something like this here. So we have two layers, our base, and let's name this one here the top. So we have our base and our top layer here to our dirt. So now what I'm going to do is just create a smart material out of this, and then we're going to apply that here to our other texture sets. So let's start with the arms first. Control Alt right click here to select the arm texture set. Let's open up our shelf. Here's our dirt material that we've been working on. Let's left click, drag and drop that here to the top of the layer stack, and then close our shelf. So here is this dirt material. Now what I'm going to do here for these arms is I'm going to drop here into that top level, into the mask editor, and I think I'm going to just come over here to that position gradient and then just play around with this top to bottom control. So see how now I can use this to control this top to bottom amount. So what I'm going to do is just back this off so where most of the dirt's kind of collecting here in this area. Okay, so that'll take care of the arms. Let's take a look at this top piece here. So Control Alt right click here on the top piece. Let's open our shelf. Here we have our dirt material again. Drag and drop that to the top of the layer stack. And yeah, I think this is looking okay by default. So we might just leave that for now. And then here we have this midsection here. So Control Alt right click to select the texture set. Let's open up our shelf. Drag and drop our texture into the layer stack, our dirt into the layer stack. And here, we're going to come in and play around with this one. So let's go back here to that top MG mask editor. And we're going to scroll down to where we have our position gradient. Let's open up the controls, and we're going to play around with this top to bottom control here. So let's do something more like that. I think what I'm going to do is increase that contrast, or here, play around with the balance. Let's do something more like that. There we go. All right, so that's just going to take care of my dirt layer here that I've added to all of my texture sets. So now we're going to take a look at this glass material. So I'm going to Control right click here, Control Alt right click to select that texture set. And at the very beginning of the course, we added this opacity shader here. So if we look at our shader parameters, we've set this, we added this alpha blending shader, and we've set this instance name to glass. Now, when we actually start to render this here in Iray inside of Painter, we're not really going to use this alpha blending shader at all. What we're going to do is actually work with refraction. But I still needed to have a separate shader, so that's why we set up this instance name to begin with. And we went ahead and just set the transparency here just so we could view this as glass as we worked here inside of Substance Painter. However, now that we're getting ready to jump into the rendering phase of this, I don't actually need this opacity. So I'm just going to come into here and disable that channel. So now here on this layer, well, I'll tell you what, let's leave the channel enabled, and let's create a fill, and let's just call this glass. Okay, so in order to get this to work correctly here inside of Iray, we're going to have this glass, and we're just going to set this here to a value of white. Actually, here, let's set it to gray so we can kind of see what we're doing as we work here in this real-time viewport. So we'll change that in a moment. Okay, so the thing that I really want to do with this is I want to add a lot of variation here to my roughness. So I think what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to break the roughness off into its own layer. So let's set this here to be our color, and let's turn off all of these guys here. Actually, let's leave opacity on so we can overwrite that opacity channel here at the bottom. And let's create another fill on top of this guy, and we're going to call this one roughness. So here we're going to have this roughness value, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to right click, add a black mask into here, add an effect and a fill, and let's just start adding a couple grunge maps in here to vary this roughness. So here we're going to come in and, all right, well, we were already doing a search for grunge. Here, let's do grunge rough, and let's see here. I'm going to use either this rough dirty map. Yeah, let's do this one. All right, so I'm going to apply this map here. Let's hit the C key to drop into here to our roughness. Now you'll notice here that we're starting to have some transparent values to this. So let's go back here to this glass, and I'm going to enable this roughness channel. And here, let's just set this to like a mid value. We'll come in and we'll set this to be a value of like say 0.5. So we have this base, and then on top of that we have this new layer which is going to represent our actual rough here. So we'll hit M on the keyboard to go back to our material mode. Now as we look at this, it's almost looking like a frosted glass at this time, but the point is we can start to see this rough information here. Now what I'm going to do is let's see. Let's come over here with this grunge rough dirty fill. Let's take a look at its balance. So I might do something like this here. And I think what I'm going to do is add a levels here on top of this. And then I'm going to play around with these levels here. Just increase that contrast a little bit like that. Okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is add another fill on top of this guy. And let's look through a couple of these grunge maps and see what we can find. So we'll come down. There's some interesting ones here, like these stains and things like this. So you know what? I think I'm going to grab one of these guys. So let's do this grunge stains small hollow. So we'll use this guy. So here's what this one looks like. There's some good stuff in here. Some nice effects. So we want to combine this with everything that we're doing. So let's just set the blending mode to this to be max lighten. And so here we're getting just a little bit more control. Let's hit the C key on the keyboard to look at this grunge map. And here, let's go back into the balance and just play around with this. So here, you know what I think I might do is just increase that balance setting, something like that. Now let's hit M on the keyboard and see what we're getting here. Okay, pretty good. Just got to move my light around a lot to really see what I'm doing here. And let's just add another layer. More variation, the better it's going to look. So let's come into here and let's see what else we have. Just going to try to pick something here. That's stone details. Is not going to be great for glass. Let's see here. I think there's a nice scratch map in here somewhere. Maybe this one here will be good. Grunge wipe grainy. Let's do this. So I'm going to enable this guy. And maybe this time I might try... Well, here, let's do this. Let's see on the keyboard so we can go back here into our blending mode. I set that to multiply. Let's see what that's doing. I don't like that. Let's set it to max lighten. And let's play around here with balance and our contrast. Not sure I really like this, so here, let me see if I can find another one. Yeah, this one looks good here. Let's try this grunge leaks. Okay, so I don't really like the way this one is rotated. So here we can come over here to the UV rotation. Let's try rotating this guy. And adjust our offset. There we go. And again, just playing around with the rotation. Let's do that. Okay. And again, just kind of playing around with the offsets. Okay, let's do something like maybe this here. And we have that set to max lighten as well. So here, let's hit M on the keyboard and see what we get. Let's go back into our roughness here, and maybe let's try setting this to multiply. Okay, so now I'm going to hit M on the keyboard to go back into my material. And now I think we're getting a pretty good roughness map that we're going to use here for this glass. So let's go back here to this glass layer. And for the color, like I said, we're going to end up setting this, whoops, bring up our color picker here. And we're going to set this here closer to white. And this will make a lot more sense when we actually get into rendering an iRay, where this is going to be, where we're going to use ray trace refraction here for this glass. So here I'm going to close out this video. What we did was we just created a overall dirt material, and then we created our glass, or we started to create the elements for our glass, mainly focusing on the roughness map. Now in the next video, we're going to take a look at doing the full render using iRay.